Great. Okay.
Cool. Well, man, you obviously have a great knack for talent. So I'm looking forward to delving into that superpower you have. But before we get to that point, I want to know 4 years ago, this whole pandemic was really gripping all of us, especially up where you're at. How did you
Oh,
survive that?
absolutely.
Yeah. How did you survive that time period and how did it change you?
Well, it definitely was a challenging experience. I mean, I've been doing some work online, with the artists I work with. So it was kind of like I was already a little bit working online already. Like I already had Zoom, I was already familiar with Zoom. It definitely was a challenge. I'm not gonna, make, light of that. It was definitely a challenge to go completely, everything remote. Um, and now no longer being in a room, but we've adapted. And I checked in, because the artists I represent and work with, I've always checked in. I was kind of like, doing weekly check-ins with everybody, like, how are you doing? Um, and there were also a lot of virtual like acting challenges for the artists I work with, so that they kind of kept their muscle active. Um, sometimes casting directors had like Instagram challenges. Um, or other types of virtual challenges where actors would their scenes and monologues and for contest type format, and it kind of kept their acting muscles working.
Yeah.
And that was the whole thing, was like, and even I was like, I can't sit back. I cannot just sit and and get anxiety, because also we were dealing with the news that were bombarding us daily with the statistics and all of that, and fear, and so, and New York was hit pretty hard,
Yeah.
during that time. And I've a lot of the clients I work with like lost grandparents, parents, because if they were nursing homes or long-term care facilities. So there was a lot of losses that were happening,
Yeah.
in my circle. So that was a bit of a challenge, but the main thing is just keep resilient, keep ourselves active. And kind of, like in one sense, the show must go on,
Yeah.
and that was like my whole thing growing up. Like I cannot sit back. There's got to be other ways, and so I, got delved more into Zoom and doing more stuff online, as a way to just kind of mitigate what was happening.
Sure. So let me ask you this. If I put you in front of a bunch of third grade students at career day, and one of the kids was curious about what you do on a daily basis, and they were like, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
I would say I'm a matchmaker. I match actors to their dream jobs. You
So
know,
what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
something completely different. I wanted to be a brain surgeon. Um, yeah, that was at the time. I wanted to be a doctor, um, but I really wasn't really well versed in math, so that was a bit of a problem. Um, and then, during high school, I became very interested like in human mind. So I was like, I'm going to major in psychology, and so that's what I did. That's where my all my higher education was psychology. I have a bachelor's, master's, and doctorate in psychology. So that sort of keeping the dream alive,
Yeah.
on one level. But yeah, it was definitely completely different. I had no knowledge of the that I'd be working in the, or any inkling that I'd be working with actors, prior to maybe 20 years ago.
So when did you realize you had this talent? What was the moment, the flashpoint where you said, "This is my life"?
When I started working indirectly with actors, I was in grad school, just finished a master's degree right around the time, unfortunately, when 9/11. So I was doing a lot of crisis intervention, volunteering for different social service agencies, and I started working with artist collectives, providing, a lot of the artist collectives were like, giving back to the community. And so I was part of the team. Like we would sometimes just provide advocacy and support to like at that time I was working a lot with the families of rescue workers that had perished. So we were providing like, entitlements and making sure that the families would survive, food, insurance, all of that stuff. And I was working with a lot of actors, and I realized how much I love actors. I'm like, I just love being in a creative space, the creative energy of things. And I've always had, inklings towards being creative. I mean, I was involved in a drama school in high school. I took some acting classes in college as electives. When it came time to pick electives, I didn't really have the interest of being a professional actor, but I just really liked the process of watching stuff being created and just being around the creative energy, which was so incredibly powerful for me.
So talk to me a little bit about who's been a hero or inspiration for you in your life.
I have several. I would say, on a familial level, it would be my paternal grandmother, um, who was with me my first 14 years of my life. Um, and she was probably the first one. I had a couple teachers in high school that believed in me, um, and those were, instrumental as well. Because right around my freshman year, my grandmother had passed away. So I was going through a really rough time, but I found a couple of, faculty mentors that kind of guided me a little, along the way through that
Yeah.
time period and helped me kind of sustain the process. So there's been a lot of things that have been kind of helping me through, the thing there.
So you have to give good advice to your clients. What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
The best, I would say, just really believing in yourself. Just in a sense that I could do it. I mean, I think a lot of people just believed in me at a time, especially during my teenage years when I didn't believe in myself.
Yeah.
That's where I was like, that was very, very powerful for me, because at the
Yeah.
time I really didn't see what they were doing until afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this. So you have to kind of find talent and place them in the right places. So you get to be around people that most of us civilian people don't get to be around. My question to you is this. If you can meet one fascinating person on the planet right now, interesting person, and spend some time with them, who would it be?
Let's see. Um, that's very interesting because I have a few. I mean, I love veteran actors. I probably would like Anthony Hopkins, Vincent D'Onofrio, people that I've been fans of just to know their creative process. Um, and then even experts in our field. If we were alive now, I'd love to have a discussion with Freud. But you were, you know, um, B.F. Skinner, like the icons in the field of psychology, would probably be a big one.
So what's been one of your favorite client success stories? What was a talent you landed that was just kind of out of this world?
Well, I would say my first primetime booking. This is about 12 years ago. I booked a person who got a guest spot on Lenore SVU. And for me, that was like my first not only primetime booking, but it was my first major primetime booking because it was like they were in the front credits and they were like a major part of the storyline for that episode. Um, and then I had to juggle because I had the actor was currently on a teaching engagement in Texas, and I had to get him here for the callbacks. I had to cut that trip short, so there was a lot of juggling going on behind that. We weren't too sure if it was going to work, and then it finally did, and that was an amazing experience. Um, Another time I had a client in my office who I just had signed, and I was looking at what I get daily briefs which come out, which are like, what are the casting needs for every type of show? And I was looking at this character, and meantime, I was like kind of wrapping up my meeting with this actress, and I was like, this role is you. Let me see what I can do. Right now, this rarely happens, and at least in my world. So did what I had to that same day. She was, went to audition and she booked the role. And it
Wow.
was such an exciting experience for
Yeah.
me because it gave me, it provided reinforcement. Like this is what I do.
Yeah.
This is what gives me joy is connecting people.
Yeah.
I've always been a connector. Even in high school, I would connect people. That were oh, this person's working on this. You think he'd be, great for that. Whether it's not act, even if we're not acting, just connecting people together. So that's where I kind of feel like my mission is to speak connector to. And what good way to do that, being an agent for actors, is connecting them to the proper role, the proper dream opportunity for them.
What's your favorite movie?
Let's see. I like Saving Private Ryan, probably on the dramatic side, just because of the life lessons behind that and how incredibly moving it was.
Yeah.
Um, Comedic side, I like, and I have an eclectic use, but I do love indie films and dramatic films, but also like where, strictly like, full-blown comedy, like The Wedding Crashers or
Yeah.
Hangover movies. So I enjoy those. Those are kind of like my guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
Those types of in your face comedies.
Yeah. Yeah. So, of all of the things that you've done in your life so far and evolved into, what are you the proudest of?
I would say getting my PhD would be the first thing, getting my doctorate, because I was the first person in my family to go to college. Not only that, but now I have a doctor.
Yeah.
So that was an honor. It was a little surreal for a little bit of time after that, having, people call me doctor. I was like, wow, really cool.
Yeah.
So that was probably, and then also I, just got into Podmatch because I published a book.
Yeah.
So that was, I would say, my second, which was this year, because that was like a 5 or 6 year in the making type of a project. And so that was, I would say, those are my significant
So, talk
things.
to me a little bit about your book.
Sure, my book is called Rise Above the Script, and it helps actors overcome self doubt and master self sabotage for auditions, for performing, and just in general, so like surviving an incredibly competitive field as show business is.
Yeah.
Because while show business has its perks, it also is a very incredibly difficult field to be in. You really have to have a lot of resilience and thick skin to thrive in this business. So it kind of gives a little bit of that, that in there. I do of course, a lot of psychological research and principles, but it's mainly to overcome imposter syndrome for your success and, just work on getting out of your own way as an artist, but just in general. Like,
Yeah.
even though the book is geared towards actors and performers, there's a lot in there that could be valuable for anybody who's dealing with imposter syndrome and fear of success and all of those elements.
Yeah. So, let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 18-year-old version of you. You can give that young version of you a piece of advice based on the life you've lived, the wisdom you've gained. What advice would you give your young self?
I would say the biggest piece would be stop caring about what other people think of you.
Yeah.
Don't stop trying to fit in. Stop trying to be desperate for attention and desperate for people to accept you. That was the biggest thing. Because I think that would have eliminated so much if I just walked away with what I know now back then.
Yeah.
Because now I just have a nonchalant attitude where it's like, well, if you're not meant to be in my life, then that's great. I
Yeah.
used to, I was sometimes guilty of holding on to people for way too long.
Yeah.
And I think that would probably be the biggest piece of advice I would give myself.
So, at the end of the day, Albert, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, colleagues, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think, again, I'm a connector. I am someone who's extremely dedicated and loyal, and I work hard for, the people I believe in and the causes I believe in. That would be my perception of myself.
So, if anyone out there wants to get your brand new book, they want to hire you as a talent agent, any of the good news, reach out. They have any questions? Where's the best place, the good business?
You can reach me out on personally on my Instagram, which is at Dr. Al Bramante. You can also go to bramanteartists.com for if you're an actor. There's a form that you can fill out for seeking representation, or if you have any questions, I'd be happy to interact with you there. And of course, Bramante Artists on Instagram as well.
Excellent. This has been great, Albert. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Keep doing the great work, man.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for the interview.
It was a joy. Thank you. Take care.